Hello, Sim here. So today we're going to be looking at the Xbox One Elite wireless controller. I've had this for a little while right now, and it's not intended to be a unboxing video or anything like that, but I just wanted to show you what you get for your money for about £130 and maybe a little less depending on which retailer you go and pick it up with. So you've got a case and you've got the controller in it as well. But there's a couple of other goodies in there I'll just show you because I only discovered it earlier on, just prior to making this video. And we've actually got a nice little braided cable in here. So here we go, nice little braided cable. There is actually a couple of AA batteries in there. You can get it separate. You can use the standard plug and play sort of charging kit with the Xbox One controller. There is another charging kit you can get, and it's more rapid, it's more faster and all that sort of jazz. But hey, what I just wanted to concentrate on was what you get for your 130 quid. So you get a case, you get a braided cable, and of course the controller itself, minus the control freaks there. So I can just about fit in the control freaks. So the control freaks don't come as standard, obviously, they are other accessories, and that's just me showing you that you can actually take off. You can see there, it's going, oh, where's the thumbstick? Well, it's stuck on the control freak while I try and take it off for a second. Right, so here we go. Here's the little head of the thumbstick. So, right, so one of the concerns I had, and any of you guys who've looked about these are going, wait a second, we've heard it's all sort of magnetic and stuff. Because hey, guess what? You can take these paddles off. If I can do it with looking at the, trying to look at the camera and do this. So there we go. So literally, here we go. You see it? You got this, and it just slots in there. So you can take off 4 paddles. You can take all the paddles off, or just have 2 paddles on. Now, actually, I've managed to find a configuration that I can game with all 4 paddles, and I really do like it. So when I switch from Xbox to PlayStation 4, it's a bit of fun and games because I've got to get used to the traditional paddle mapping. Because I will show you how I've mapped it when we flip over to the Xbox One screen later on in the video. So, okay, what do we get? So we got that, so we've got braided cable you've seen, get the controller itself, you get a case, and already I feel like I'm quids in. And here you've got a different type of D-pad, your traditional D-pad, because literally what happens is you can take this off, put the other one there on, and just slot, because you see it there you go, you can just slot it on. So if you want your traditional D-pad, and this is all fun and games, trying to look at the camera and this at the same time, you can go for that and be your classic D-pad, and there's nothing to it. But actually I do quite like the other sort of rotational one. It's you know, this is more for having to roll around when you're doing, I don't know, thinking like typical fighting games and, you know, mashing the controller, so to speak. But you also have different thumbsticks. So I can take that one off there, put that there for a second, take another one off, and this is a long one. So effectively, it's like a control freak. So you don't necessarily need to spend any money on a control freak, especially if you're used to these size of thumbsticks. Now, because I find these thumbsticks too small for me, I prefer to stick with the traditional, because you get the traditional size, the ridiculously long size one that you just saw there, and it's like a medium sized one. And so you can use these, there you go. You can see that's the traditional, that's the medium, and you saw the long one a second ago. And so you can use those instead, but I personally stick with the standard one and put a control freak on because I'm used to it, I'm used to that size, that's what suits me. But I have the option, if so I wish, to use those. And if you don't have any control freaks or anything like that, then hey presto, you've got instant, you can find out what sort of size suits you and go from there. So what do I think about this controller? Because I originally was thinking, oh my god, these paddle things here are just going to fall off, and they don't. Now they are extremely sensitive, and I mean, because traditionally I'd rest my gaming controller on my lap, and if I do that, I'll end up triggering and it registers the pushing of these buttons, and stuff happens. So I've ended up having to place it on a table or something like that when I need to do something else, where traditionally I place it on my lap. So, right, so as I said, you can have 4 paddles, you can take these 4 paddles off, you can just have 2, on, they're completely removable, and they don't fall out. They really are good, because that was my primary concern. It's like, it's held on by magnets, man, it's going to fall off. Oh my god. It doesn't. It really is good. Now, the other thing you got here is you got trigger stops, and you can see here you got, this is traditional full range motion here. Let's see if we can get the light there. So when it's forwards, you can see the long range. And when it's back, like this one, that's the traditional trigger stop. So if we try and shoot it from an angle here, that's still in shot. It's always fun. So that is in trigger stop mode. Now if I flip the green button like that, then we're back to full range motion. I don't know if I can try and keep this in the same shot and move the green bit. There we go, now trigger stop's on. And that is really advantageous, really is. There's no getting a little screwdriver out and stripping off these things on an Xbox controller type thing to adjust it. You can just do it on the fly. Hey presto, it works. It's great. So any of you guys who remember me covering Battlefield Hardline, there was a particular moment in it where I had to, in the campaign where you shooting with a single, traditional handgun, and it wouldn't work with a trigger stop type controller. I had to switch to an ordinary controller to be able to play the game. So now I don't have to. I can just switch the trigger stop on or off, depending on the game I'm playing. Multiplayer mode, yeah, it'll be on. Ordinary campaign, it'll be off, just because developers tend to program it in. So I am pretty impressed with the controller. I'm really happy with it. And also, because this is metal, you will see me do the scuff controller review where this will just eat into plastic. I'll have to wait and see what happens on my Shark controller, because I've got enough time to pass. But because this is metal against plastic, I don't envisage there going to be any wearing problems whatsoever. So what we're going to do now is flip over to the Xbox One screen, show you how you can customize this further, because you can also customize the brightness of this. Remember I was saying about traditionally going for a customized version of like a blue because it was so bright. You can actually tone it down via software and change the brightness of it. So that's pretty damn cool, and I am pleased, really pleased with this. Best investment ever. If Sony makes something similar for their console, that would be a welcome change too, but we're talking Sony there. Anyway, let's go and flip over to the Xbox One screen. Right, so on our Xbox, we're looking at the Elite Controller app. The slide position is set at 1. You can see it cooks up to and highlights up to COD, and if I slide it to the right, Gears of War comes up, and the paddles, if you're lucky, should update on the bottom of the screen, because it's a bit hit and miss of this little front screen reflecting the actual configuration. But anyway, let's slide back to position number 1, and then we're going to configure. So here you go, you can see what my button mappings are, and I can then switch down to my second slide slot to show you what the position, what the configuration is set up to. Nothing too fancy there, and COD is obviously, that's my main game, but that was just a preset that I just wanted to show you something different. So selecting COD, obviously I can select, I can create multiple profiles and save it to any slot I want, but I want to edit it, so I can show you how you go about setting up your controller. Now most of you are going to be interested about button mapping, in other words, assigning paddles and stuff to buttons. So for example, the right hand side, you got 2 paddles. There's one furthest away from me which you can't see in this graphics. If I hold that one down, press A, it assigns it to A. Now on the screen nothing appears to have happened because that's the configuration I've got. Now if you're like me, you'll be thinking, I want the A button assigned to that paddle. So I'm going to hit the A button, hold it down, and press that paddle. And what happens in this case is that the paddle is A, and A becomes, non-functioning. It doesn't work, it does nothing, which is not good. And because, so if Sim can do it, you guys can do it, so I wanted to show you how not to do it, and how to get out of it if you accidentally do it. So now I have to use the paddle button on the unmapped to go and then scroll all the way up, select A, and then press the paddle to get A. So in other words, hold down the paddle of interest, like the X paddle, the furthest right one on my screen, hold it down first, and then press the appropriate button like X, and it assigns it. Cool stuff. So we move on, we've got swap sticks. So, the right stick can come with the left stick, and the left stick can come with the right stick. So You know, that could be advantageous for some players out there. You know, if you're disabled or whatever, left-handed, right-handed, all that sort of jazz, it's more comfortable, that type of thing. So that's quite handy, nice and configurable. And if you're an older gamer like myself who grew up on flight simulators, pulling back on that joystick makes you go up and fly into the sky, and pushing down makes you dive and bomb. So you could invert your y-axis and have that without having to do it in the game. Although you could have a copy of this configuration, let's say you share the controller, and you just have it inverted on one of the settings, so you just pass the controller between you and the other player, between 1 and 2, and then suddenly it's inverted or not inverted, and without having to go into the games menu and stuff, which is quite cool. Obviously you can invert the other stick too, and if you want you can swap the triggers around again. Similarly, you know, if that's your preference, you want the left trigger to be the shoot to your button and the right stick to be the aim down sight button. So that's quite cool. Moving on, we can do the left stick and we can do the right stick, so we can change it. So here I've got it on delay. It's not what I game with, but here we go. So as basically the white tells you where the actual stick is in reality, and the orange is what it's telling the game, should we say, of where the stick is. So you know, if I was gaming on delay, maybe I want a nice instant response here, but I don't over here. But for me, I find that a laggy type experience. I don't want delay. I leave it on default. You can go for aggressive, and it changes the profile again. But what you can do is then go down to this toggle button here and change the profile, so you know where you want it and stuff like that. I have mucked about with stuff. I think I've tried like a smooth, but I've ended up going back to default. I mean, I spent years getting used to the controllers as they are, but you have the option to absolutely muck about at your own pleasure for both the left stick and the right stick, so I leave them as default. Moving on to triggers. Now here's some interesting stuff for you. So you've got the full range, and if I switch off my trigger stop of the left stick, for example, I can basically, if I remember how to do this for a second, yeah, there. Okay, so what I've got to do is do the left. I use the left thumbstick to go from left to right to make the 050 the one that's in control, and then drag down, for example, the stick to change that setting. So now I get the full range of motion doing that, but if I wanted to change it back to where I had it, like 50, here we go. So aiming down sight, as soon as it hits that, that's it, full lock, you've done. So it's effectively like a software trigger stop. So I've got it set up like that, and then of course you can move to the right. And I've just pressed the right trigger to activate that, and I've just said, okay, it's my shoot button. I want it to be as fast and reactive as possible. Just go and shoot bullets and kill enemies. That's what I want. So that's that. And then you've got vibration. So on the Xbox, you just don't have the rumble on the bottom of the actual main thing. You also, so I've used the left stick again to flip between these things. But I also have if I change that value, you can see the little thing there, sort of, you might hear the controller making its noises, but basically that's the haptic feedback for the trigger itself of how much vibration I want, but generally I have vibration turned off in the game anyway. But you can muck about with it and say, okay, I do want a little bit of vibration, but I want the intensity really dialed down, please. So yeah, I might play about that for some single player campaigns or something in the future, and just dial it down to like 10% or 5% or whatever the lowest it is. What is the lowest it can go? Let's have a look. 5. So yeah, you know, you could have it as 5% and go, okay, I got something, because I don't want my aim off, but that's because I'm a shooting person. But you can muck about with that. And then of course, the other thing is the Xbox. You can change the brightness of that there, so you can have it full whack or completely off, or just a little bit, you know, 30% or something like that. Once you've got all that done, you can then save that configuration. Well, it automatically saves, and then you just save it to the slot. So I can save it to slot 2, for example. In this case, it's you know, it's identical. So if we go and pop over to the game, we can show you a little bit of it in action. So here we go. So obviously I can jump around and twiddle and do all stuff while I'm doing that, right? Because I've got that paddle, and that's the paddle for me that works best. The one that's furthest right away from me, so on the right hand side furthest away from me. But if I fire as well, I can jump up and then press the other paddle that's closest to me and reload at the same time, which I find quite handy. And then of course you've got the paddle, so I've got the left hand side, the paddle closest to me, I've used to assign that to do the good old swip to an alternative weapon, and the paddle on the left that's furthest away from me I use for melee, and I can then just press that. So the paddles for me that works nicely is the one on the right hand side furthest away from me for jumping, and then press the paddle closest to me to reload, and it works really nicely. I really do like it, being able to like be in a gunfight, jump around, reload and shoot enemies. It really does work nicely for me. So I hope you found this little guide and review helpful. If so, I appreciate a thumbs up. It really does help my channel grow. As always, if you're new here and you'd like to stay in touch with my videos, hit that subscribe button. And until next time, this has been Sim.